this is the rough agenda for today. We're going to be introducing speakers and then talking about what fuel poverty is, what we do at Exeter Community Energy to try to tackle that, and some ideas we have for change around the topic, ending up with a session on questions from the floor. We'll aim to finish at 3 o'clock. So I just want to start off with who we are. I'm sure all of you on this call will actually know who we are and what we do already, but I thought I'd just do a brief summary just in case. So Exeter Community Energy started in 2014, and the original idea was to create some renewable energy projects, and we've been very successful at that. We now have 10 solar rooftop projects around and those projects are owned by the community. Community energy, the solar panels are owned by the collective of the community that have invested. And the profits from running those solar rooftops come back to us, which we then disperse to the people who have invested, and the surplus goes into projects that we run. And one of the projects that we run is a community fund, which is actually launched at the moment. And we take applications from other organisations around Exeter and surroundings for grants that they might like to use for other energy efficiency projects. And you can find out more about that on our website if you'd like to. And the other project that we fund partly is our Healthy Homes for Wellbeing project. Now, this project started in 2017, and the sole purpose of Healthy Homes for Wellbeing is to help people in fuel poverty. And we've been doing that now successfully since November 2016, and we're currently helping about 1,000 people about that in a moment. So there's our social media details there on the slide, and obviously you can read more about all of our projects on the website. We'd be really happy for you to connect with us on social media. And obviously, if you want to tweet about this particular webinar, and we'd be very grateful for you to do that. So I'm just going to introduce the team and speakers today. Starting on the top left is Jill Wyatt. Now, Jill actually couldn't be with us today, but some of you will know Jill, you would have met Jill. Jill was one of the founders of Exeter Community Energy, and she was running this Healthy Homes project until the summer of this year when I took over. And she's a very experienced home energy advisor, and she's currently covering the East Devon sector for us with this work. Next on the slide is Matthew, so I'll let Matthew introduce himself.
Hi, yeah, I'm Matthew Axe. I've been a home energy advisor with ECO for about 2 years, and the area that I cover is Teignbridge and Torbay.
Thank you, Matthew. The next on the slide we have Paul.
Hi, I'm Paul Whittle. I've been a HEA working mainly with the telephone service to help the vulnerable out there, and hoping to be able to get back in the field as soon as possibly can.
Thanks, Paul. Next we have Julie.
Hi, yeah, I'm Julie Glover. I've been a home energy advisor for East Devon with Exeter Community Energy for the last few months. Thank you.
And last but not least is Charlene.
Hi, I'm Charlene Battams. I work in Mid Devon as a home energy advisor, and I too have only been doing the job for a few months.
Thank you. Which leaves us onto the last picture, which is myself, Tara Bowers. I'm running the Healthy Homes project with Ben Bradshaw, MP for Exeter, who will introduce himself next. And I was privileged to be invited to the Houses of Parliament in January this year to receive an award for the work that we do in fuel poverty. I was awarded a Heat Hero Award from National Energy Action, who is a national charity fighting for fuel poverty, which brings me on to Ben to introduce himself. Have we lost Ben?
Yes, sorry, I didn't unmute myself. Yes, I was just saying that must have been one of the last public events we had at the House of Commons before COVID kicked off. Feels like ages ago now. Yes, I'm Ben Bradshaw, the local Labour MP, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you and your experts what the main challenges are and what the policy problems and blockages are that I might be able to help you lobby the government over if that's part of the intention of today.
It definitely is. Thank you, Ben. Yes, and I'm sure as we go through some of this, you'll see some of the potential problems we hit on a daily basis, and some of those definitely are around policy change. So we'd be very pleased to have your support with that. So we'll now get started on what today's all about. So, today is Fuel Poverty Awareness Day, and we're very pleased to be supporting True Energy Action is a charity that fights fuel poverty. They have a vision to end the suffering caused by cold homes. And you can tweet anything you want to do about this event using the hashtag Fuel Poverty Awareness Day. And we're also able to look at NEA's website to read more about the work they do in lobbying governments around fuel poverty and the issues we face around the energy industry. And I think hopefully Julie on our team has been posting some stuff on social media today already, and you'll be able to share that or join in on that on comments. Please feel free to do so. I'd like to also tell you that NEA also run some excellent training. We have everyone on our team has had numerous training days with NEA. And they do frontline worker sessions for anybody who's working, free training. Hopefully Charlene's just put the link in the chat for me, or was about to put the link in the chat for me. So you'll be able to look at that area of NEA's website and sign up for some of the free training. It really is useful information that they share all around vulnerability and how the vulnerable are most affected by the energy sector, and the way that the energy tariffs and bills, etc. work. And also they do one around fuel debt as well, which is quite useful for anybody working with support work type services for vulnerable people. So I would urge you to have a look at that. So we fully support everything that NEA does in their fight for policy change. And I just want to explain now what fuel poverty is, because it's a phrase that's used a lot. And basically we view it as a house is in fuel poverty when they can't afford to heat their home to the temperature needed to stay warm and healthy. And generally that's 18 degrees in a home and 21 degrees in living rooms. For elderly people, they're sat for longer periods of time, they would generally. Fuel poverty occurs when a number of factors conspire against that household or an individual. And I've just listed a few things here on the slide. Obviously low income is a big factor, particularly those that are on low benefits. High housing costs, so that by that I mean rental costs often are a big factor, and then obviously council tax. And then if you have high energy bills, prices for energy bills have been rising over the last few years. Also water bills obviously come into that, broadband and TV, everything. The costs of those all rise. And if you're on a low fixed income, a benefit driven income, then each house will be finding their own pressure points. Particularly also fuel poverty is prevalent in hard to heat homes. So older housing with solid walls, that can't easily be insulated, or homes that have got inadequate heating systems, or areas which are off gas grid. And obviously in Devon we've got huge areas of the county that are not connected to mains gas, so that causes its own issues in terms of heating choices, whether that be wood or oil or just straightforward electric heating. And then it comes down to the individual needs. So obviously the need of a 95-year-old that's sat in an armchair all day is hugely different to the need of a young couple who are out at work and maybe quite sporty. So the whole situation around fuel poverty is complex and differs by each person and by each house. You could even have two people living exactly next door to each other in similar houses, but their needs will be totally different and their incomes would be totally different. And one house could be in fuel poverty and one house might not be. And what we find generally is that the poorest people tend to live in the least energy efficient homes and end up paying the most for their energy. And that's a very sad reality that we see daily. And I've just added onto this slide that currently the level of fuel poverty in England is running at 10.3% of households, and approximately 2.4 million homes are struggling to pay their energy bills. Health England have announced only just this month that exposure to cold temperatures has a range of physiological effects, including increased blood pressure, risk of clotting, suppression of immune system, and diminished capacity of the lungs to fight off infection and narrowing of airways. Now, we don't need rocket science to understand why they've announced that this month. There's a clear link to those things and the COVID-19 virus. Health England also go on to say that cold temps, and that's things like stroke and heart attack, for example, blood pressure conditions. And also there is evidence that those treated for cold-related illnesses are often discharged back into cold homes. And there is a vicious cycle of readmission to hospitals if we don't solve the problems of those cold homes. In addition to that, in any normal year, around 12,000 people die because they live in a cold home. And that's a very, very sad fact in this country. Additionally, the cost of admitting people to hospital and re-admitting them, re-admitting them due to cold-related illnesses costs the NHS between 1.4 and £2 billion per year in England alone. So I just mentioned just now that 10.3% of people in England are in fuel poverty, but here are some real statistics about our area. So the Devon figure is 10.7%. So more than 1 in 10 people in this county are struggling to pay their fuel bills. Now, we work in 5 districts as Exeter Community Energy. We're not just Exeter based. We work in Mid Devon, East Devon, Teignbridge and Torbay as well. And I've listed the statistics for our 5 districts. So you can see there that Mid Devon is top of that list. And the main reason for that is that much of Mid Devon is not connected to mains gas. So we see very high fuel bills in many of the houses that we visit in Mid Devon. Exeter's not far behind, and neither are the other 3, going down to 9.6% in Teignbridge. And for Ben's benefit, I've listed the statistics for the Exeter constituency and the Central Devon constituency. So the Exeter is running at 10.8, which is higher than the national average and higher than the Devon average. And the Central Devon constituency, which we also work in, is running at 12.1. And again, that's because of the rurality of those areas. And we've shared the link with you for the government statistics that you can have a look at yourself for your own areas. There's very detailed statistics available, and you can pinpoint it down to exactly where you live or work to see what the problems are in your local area. So the other thing to talk about is that with the COVID situation, we've no doubt that it's going to be a difficult winter for many people. And the indications are that debt is on the rise. The Citizens Advice have already estimated that 6 million UK adults have already fallen behind on at least one household bill during the pandemic. And I think we'll have time to discuss the impact of COVID later in the questions session. So what do we do to tackle it at Exeter Community Energy with our Healthy Homes project? Well, some of you will know that what we do is a very bespoke service. Each individual is different, so we work hard with as individuals to find solutions. And we offer a range of services that can just be general advice. We also do home visits. Now, we've been doing home visits since August. We stopped doing home visits when the first lockdown started, but we restarted doing home visits in August. Now, we do our own home visits as Exeter Community Energy, but we also work in partnership with LEAP, who I'm sure many of you have heard of, which stands for the Local Energy Advice Partnership. Now, LEAP's a national service, and we're the local partners for LEAP. It gets a bit confusing out there sometimes. A lot of people think we are LEAP, but we're not. We're just the partners that work with them. But we do go into homes and offer the LEAP service to many households in the area, and I'll explain what happens on a LEAP visit in a minute. And we also do drop-in clinics. Now, before COVID, we were doing 16 drop-in clinics a month. Sadly, they've all had to stop, but we hope to be able to do those again, obviously, next year. We have done an odd few clinics recently in job centres, but obviously there aren't the community centres open where we would normally be doing these kinds of events. So instead, we're doing some energy cafes on Zoom, and you'll be able to check our website and see the dates for those. We start next month in December, and we've got one a month for the next 4 months, where residents will be able to join us much in this kind of format, but they'll be able to just pose their own questions or ask for advice around all kinds of topics, whether that be smart meters, bills, tariffs, discounts. We'll be on hand, several of us will be on hand on every energy cafe to deal with questions. We also give talks in the community, and obviously these kind of webinars at the moment. And we also offer frontline worker training. So anybody that's working in a frontline capacity, supporting vulnerable people, we can help you with some training to be able to enable you to help people directly with simple problems around billing or tariffs. So what we actually do when we do an assessment or a visit with someone is a whole host of activities. So first of all, we'll give energy saving advice and tips. We check their tariff and offer some switching help. We check that they're getting all the right discounts, whether that be warm home discounts or the discounts that are available with South West Water, and also make sure they're claiming council tax reduction where appropriate. There's lots of meter and billing help and advice we give because, as you'll hear from one of the team later, there are a huge amount of mistakes that happen by the energy system. And sometimes customers just don't know where to start, and we're called into the process, taking several months in many cases. We offer help around smart meters, so that's advice in terms of what they offer, but also help in terms of how to use the display that's supplied with the smart meter. We arrange benefit checks, we can help with debt, we obviously do a lot of signposting. We help with hardship and crisis funds applications. We also have our own hardship fund ourselves, and we also help with appliance replacements. There is a scheme via LEAP where we can replace old or broken kitchen appliances. So that's cookers, fridges, freezers, and washing machines. So as you can imagine, we do quite a lot of that too. We also, on a visit with LEAP, will install what we call some simple measures, and that's LED light bulbs. We'll replace the whole house where we can, top to bottom, with new LED light bulbs. We offer standby plugs, which turn TVs off rather than be left on standby all night. We fit draft proofing. That's both around doors and windows and letterboxes. We can fit radiator panels behind radiators to help reflect heat back into the room, thus reducing heat loss. We can fit things like chimney balloons up open unused fireplaces, again to prevent drafts. And also we carry in stock cylinder jackets to insulate hot water tanks. Now, all of these things that I've mentioned so far are all free. Everything we do is absolutely free to the resident. And we help all residents, that's of any tenure, homeowners, private rental tenants, and social housing. In terms of Exeter Community Energy, there's absolutely no criteria that anyone has to meet to ask for help from us. If somebody has a problem and they want some energy support, we will help them. With LEAP, however, there is an eligibility criteria, but it is quite wide, and you can look at the LEAP website for more details on that. Charlene, you might not have that link ready actually to share, but it's applyforleap.org.uk, and you can check out the eligibility on the LEAP website, and if your client or friend or resident is eligible, then you can refer them in for a visit from one of us via the LEAP service, or you can just refer direct to us, which I'll talk about in a moment. The other thing to point out is that we save on average each household about £800. Seems amazing sometimes around that much money, but just last week Paul did a switch for somebody, a switching tariff, and saved that one household in 15 minutes. He saved them about £720. So to remind you, we've got 6 advisors who you already met, and we are all fully trained to City and Guilds Level 3 in energy awareness. And at the moment, we're helping about 150 homes a month. The other thing we do is what we call the bigger measures around heating and insulation. So we help people, particularly vulnerable people, apply grants if they need either first-time heating in their home, if they've been making do with just a fire, for example, for the first time. We can help them with all of that. We also can help get grants for storage heater upgrades or replacements, boiler replacements. LEAP run an emergency scheme for boiler repairs and replace, and we can also help people upgrade to newer technologies. And we also help with grants around insulation, that's all kinds of insulation. And we've also now working with Devon County Council on a new grant fund where we can also help vulnerable people with a low energy performance certificate for their home. There has to be homeowners for these, but we can help with window and door upgrades and solar thermal and solar PV installation. So there's absolutely a whole list of things we can do to help people. To help them. We don't have an office or a venue of our own, so we work in partnership with lots of different outlets. Lots of you here are representing those, I'm sure. So we work with the Citizens Advice, local authorities and food banks, job centres, health centres and GP practices, housing associations, many community groups, and then lots of charities like AIDS UK and Alzheimer's, for example. So we build a partnership with these organisations and we ask them to refer in their clients to us. And we find that's the best way for us to meet the vulnerable people and to be able to help them, that they've been referred by a trusted advisor already, and you in the community know that we are a trusted team to help these people with their fuel poverty issues. That's available for anybody to ring at any time. And our main Healthy Homes email address is healthyhomes@eco.org.uk. Now, we've also on our website got a referral form, and Charlene will be sharing the link for that with you. So you can just, if you want to refer someone into us, you can just complete that. It's a very straightforward form. And I'm going to make a big plea here, because this time last year we were getting lots of referrals. We had so many referrals, we didn't know what to do with them. We were absolutely overrun. This year it's a completely different story. We're hardly getting any referrals at all. And in view of the situation out there, I'm quite surprised at that. I would have thought we would be busier than ever, and we're not. This week, Monday to Friday this week, so far we've had 8 referrals, and 6 of those have been from the Mid Devon area, all from one referrer. And we've had 1 referral from East Devon and only 1 referral from Exeter. And I'm really shocked at those levels. I would have thought there were a lot more people out there needing help. And I think it's just that traction has been lost by all of us out there in the community. And somehow together we need to get the word out to vulnerable people that there is help available, that they're not to just be sat at home in cold, damp homes, worrying about their bills. They should seek help. And I don't know how between us we do that, but maybe we can talk about that later. And I lastly just need to talk to you about how we do all this. We're a completely funded service. So as mentioned, we work with LEAP, who pay us to do their services. And we've been very fortunate to get some grants in recent years from Western Power particularly, and Exeter City Council. And we've also have had other funding from the Big Energy Saving Network, Devon Community Foundation and Tesco. So we're very grateful for all the support the funders have given us over the last few years. And lastly, and then I'm going to shut up for a bit, Just want to tell you about our Winter Warmth campaign. We each year we are asked by many people for help with either fuel debt or emergency repairs or all kinds of small bits of help that they can't get grant funding for elsewhere. And last year we launched a hardship fund and we raised just short of £5,000 last year. We've just relaunched our hardship fund campaign for this winter. And when I checked earlier, we've had £915 donated so far. So if you're on your social media networks, if you're able to share this campaign for us, we'd be really grateful. The money goes directly to helping people. There's none of it is kept by us for any reason. 100% of the donations is shared out to people that need the support. And the kinds of things we spend the money on are replacing cookers or maybe supplying just extra heaters this time of year, or small repairs, essential repairs like maybe the controls for their heating have broken, that kind of thing. So every penny really counts for us helping people to stay warm. So before we go on to our ideas for change, I thought I'd give you, Ben, a chance to have a little spotlight on what you feel about poverty in your area, whether you've come across any examples of poverty or aware of it on the political arena that might be valuable to share at this point.
Thank you. Is that working?
It is, thank you.
Yes, all I can see is the presentation still, but I'll just carry on. Yes, I mean, thank you very much indeed for that, and thank you for all that you do and for soldiering on in these rather challenging circumstances. No, not really. I mean, obviously I get individual cases occasionally, and I've worked with your organisation in the past to try to address some of the historical problems around in this whole area. But I think as we've only got probably less than half an hour left, I'd rather hear from you and the experts what some of the remaining challenges are, and perhaps at the end of the session, if that's the intention, you could put together a paper for me that I can then take to the relevant government minister. And I think you've also got an issue with the threshold in Exeter, haven't you, that you wanted to raise?
Yeah.
These sessions are much more useful for me to learn from you, the experts. Really, I've got no wisdom to impart to you at all. I'm just a political hack.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll go back to the slides. And so what we thought we'd do now is each of the team members is going to highlight some issues that we face when we're meeting with vulnerable people, and talk about some of the ideas we have for making change in the fuel poverty and energy sector. So we're going to start off with Julie. Julie's going to explain her points.
Hi everyone. I'd like to talk about some of the difficulties that can arise from cold calling and doorstep selling. The selling techniques can be overpowering to vulnerable people who might not know where to turn to get a balanced view, and can find it very hard to say no. They tend not to take individual circumstances into account, and their advice isn't impartial. So they present a one-sided view which can effectively railroad people into buying their products. They sometimes even result to lies or scare stories, which can terrify people who assume that they're being told the truth by someone who comes across as trustworthy and professional. For example, I've got an example of a client recently who'd been sold a type of heating that was totally unsuited to his property. He bought it on the advice of the doorstep seller, who gave him the best of the statistics rather than a complete overview. He didn't tell him about any of the pitfalls, and the man ended up buying an expensive heating system which just cost him a fortune to run after that on a daily basis. So yeah, it's about I mean, the repercussions of this kind of mis-selling can affect people's pocket for ages afterwards, not to mention the physical and mental effects that Tara was mentioning earlier. Living in a home that's costing more than they can afford to heat. So, I mean, there is a 14-day cooling off period for people and it's just not long enough, I don't think. And basically, I think that cold calling is actually immoral and should be banned, to be quite honest. And I'm just hoping that there's some sort of pressure that we can put perhaps on the government to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. So the next point we have to raise is Matthew.
Hi, yeah. So the vulnerable and elderly are being left behind because of technological advances. Well, really, we're mainly talking about online services and online tariffs. A large proportion don't have internet access. The tariffs are becoming linked to whether you've got an online account that you're managing, and also the alternatives of using smartphones aren't realistic for these people. The systems they're being offered are quite complex, and the suppliers just don't have time or interest in this. So, I mean, as an example, this month I've spoken to 13 clients, and of those 13, I would say 6 don't go online at all. 4 can go online but struggle, so the computer they use might be a bit old and not been updated, so they feel it's insecure. And there was only 3 that were actually really confident on the internet. So I've also had cases of a gentleman in Teambridge, and it's quite a sort of fluid situation in a person's life. So this chap had gone for an online only tariff, which seemed appropriate a couple of years ago. He was going on the internet, but as he's got a little bit older, he sort of drifted away from using the internet. He's not updated his computer, and he just let it drift. And without a paper bill, he had no idea what was going on with his account. And monthly direct debits continued to go out. And as we investigated, in fact, he built up a reasonable size arrears, which we had to help him deal with. So that's a very real situation that's happening. And the attitude of the suppliers, I think they need to recognise that there's always going to be a proportion of customers that won't be going online, and that these are, you know, quite often vulnerable customers. And in some way, we need to stop those vulnerable customers being penalised for this and paying perhaps more on the tariff. Really, what they need is a fair tariff, or perhaps a special rate. That's the kind of idea I'm sort of putting forward. Well, thank you.
Great, Matthew. Yes, that's definitely a problem we see often, isn't it? So next is Charlene, who's going to talk about warm home discount.
Yeah, the warm home discount, it is a nightmare. There's a lot of different schemes, different eligibility criteria, different opening and closing dates, different payment dates. Not all the suppliers do it. Why can't it be the same across the whole industry and based on benefits received? They managed to do it for the core group. So I can't see why it can't be implemented for the broader group. I have customers that are just not aware the warm home discount scheme even exists, and we're talking about the most vulnerable people. I speak to them on the phone and they're trying to choose between whether to eat or to have heat, and I really think that we need to have a scheme in place. If you get certain benefits, that you will automatically get the warm home discount to help people through the winters.
Quite agree. And in case anybody doesn't know what the warm home discount is, it's a scheme that runs via the energy supplier, and it's paid on electricity bills only. And those on pension guarantee automatic, which is the core group, and each supplier that offers this has a different set of criteria. And what it means is we have to check for each person, we have to physically check whether they are eligible or not, and then we have to help them apply. And the problem we have with many of these schemes is that they open and close on different dates. And if we happen to speak to somebody today, we might find that the scheme already closed yesterday. And it's a complete lottery based on who you're with and when you actually get the help that you need. So the next point to be raised is from Paul.
Hi there. Just a few words about energy suppliers. They need to start treating customers like individuals, not just a number and a representation. Many of the suppliers have a lack of understanding around vulnerability. Call centre telephones, menu options, and all sorts of things like that are not helpful. They send scary letters off to people. There's one fellow I know who just hoards all his letters. He's got piles and piles of letters at home because he's so frightened to open any of these in case there's the red letter in there, and it can scare people old and young. You know, we're not talking about vulnerable people being just older people. Sometimes, you know, there can be very young people in the same boat. So I'm just going to give you a couple of recent examples of trying to deal with them. I was with an elderly lady in Paignton a couple of months ago, and we spent 45 minutes in a queue. I spoke to 3 different people, and these people obviously didn't believe who I was. As I say, my client was in her late 80s. She failed the security question, so therefore we spent about an hour and a half achieving absolutely nothing. And what we think will be a great idea was to access a one-off time code so we can speak on behalf of the vulnerable and not constantly try and prove as well, so we don't end up in a kind of shooting match on the telephone. Another time we spent a very long time on the phone, then we were cut off twice. Eventually we gave the company some meter readings. Soon after this, the client received an estimated bill. Surprise, surprise. But when we contacted the company, they said our phone call had not even happened. So at the end of the day, I mean, bills can be full of mistakes by the company, and some of these mistakes can be profound for the customer. Taking figures from the wrong meter, economy 7 rates that are the same in the day as they are in the evening, which is clearly wrong on their part. We need to get them to recognise their own mistakes in this area, and it's very, very difficult. I think they should spend more time helping customers to understand, as opposed to allow them to sometimes build up enormous debts on their account, because sometimes the debts go so out of control, they need to be picked up earlier, so then we can all help people to sort that sort of thing out. So to sum it all up, the whole method of communication needs to change drastically. Otherwise, it looks like people are simply going to give up. I meet a lot of people who have already given up with this, because quite a lot of people, both old and young, already have given up, because it's not just about being the old and the ill, it's about all members of society.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul. And then, yes, I'd like to raise a point that Ben highlighted a little just now, is when we deal with the grants for people, so that's the eco grants, which is energy company obligation grants, and the green home grants, I feel that it's all way too complicated. The new green home grants in particular are extremely confusing. It has to understand, and what the energy companies have to understand is that people and houses are not standard, and we can't have a system of grants and discounts, etc., that are one size fits all, because that's not what we are as society. But my biggest issue at the moment is with the eco funding, the eco top-up funding, and we have an issue where it really has become a postcode lottery, with some districts having a much higher income threshold for the funding than others. And the actual real example I can give you is at the moment we have a lady in Exeter who receives ESA and PIP benefits, and also gets severe disability premium. And her boiler's broken. She has no money to replace it. So we can access eco funding for the boiler, but it doesn't cover the whole cost of the boiler replacement. She needs to find £1,400 to complete the works. So the normal route would be to go for top-up funding, but in Exeter, the threshold for a single person is less than £10,000 of income. So she doesn't qualify because her disability benefit takes her over the threshold. So we're having to help her find a way of borrowing £1,400. Now, in the same week, we had a gentleman in Newton St Sires, which is only 5 miles outside of Exeter. He's within the Mid Devon district. The same situation, his boiler is broken, but because Mid Devon's threshold is 38,000 and not 10 like Exeter's, he gets his boiler completely paid for. So my point that I'd like us to raise with not only government but also local authorities is, why can't we have the same structure everywhere, particularly in the county of Devon, where we've already shown that fuel poverty is at pretty even levels across the districts? Why have we got such differing schemes? And why is it so complicated for people to access the help that they really need? Because after all, this poor lady in Exeter, if we don't find her a way of finding £1,400, she's going to have a pretty miserable Christmas. So there you are. To sum it up, that's our 5 points that we'd like to raise today on Fuel Poverty Awareness Day. We'd like energy suppliers and installers to stop cold calling and to stop doorstep selling. It's not helpful when they do this. The second point is, we don't want the vulnerable to get left behind in this race for technological gains. We want warm home discount on a level playing field. We want better regulation of energy suppliers, and we want a streamline of the home improvement grant schemes. But the last little point I'd like to add is funding. And I think that something could also be done around providing some kind of central pot for funding around energy efficiency. The government's just launched the Green Home Grant Scheme, and I think it would be really great if part of that scheme there was an option for people to apply for a voucher for advice. So people could come and get some impartial advice from organisations like us, and there's many of us up and down the country, instead of them going to an installer and only being sold impartial advice from impartial advisors such as us, and commit to supporting people in fuel poverty this winter. And I thank you for listening to our points. So that's us, that's Exeter Community Energy and our Healthy Homes project, and what we feel are the current relevant points around the industry in terms of fuel poverty. So the floor is now open to all of you. So first of all, Charlene, is there any questions in the chat that we need to cover off?
No, I was missing for the part where Victoria asked about the £720 per year. I'm not quite sure what that was referring to. Sorry, Victoria.
Hi. You said that by sending LEAP to people, they could make big savings, and one of the figures that you mentioned was £720, but you didn't say whether that was a one-off 720 or whether that was every year.
Okay, the 720 I think was a tariff switching that one of the team had done. So that was for the year. That was for the 1 year saving by switching tariff. But our average saving is more than £800. When we add up our total figures for all the work we do, we save on average each household more than £800, and that is for that year. We can only go by that year because we don't know what the circumstances are going to be the next year. So that could be discounts, savings in energy, savings by the tips and advice that we give them. But yeah, we do only count 1 year of savings.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, and then we also had Ben that wanted to say something.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much indeed for that excellent presentation. On the threshold issue, is there an officer from the City Council on this webinar? Because if so, I don't know whether they can respond to that. But if there isn't, I mean, it's certainly something I can raise with the City Council, and it's certainly something you should raise with the Chief Portfolio Holder, the elected member who's in charge of this area, who I think is Bob Fole. I don't know what the reason for that differing threshold is. On the general list of issues, it would be really helpful if you could put these in a letter for me to send, of things that you think are currently wrong with the system. It'd be really helpful if you could put these in a letter that I can send to the responsible government minister. But also in terms of your suggestions as to how things could be improved, which you touched on a little bit at the end, but generally all the way through. I'd be grateful for something along those lines too. So 2 separate documents, if that's possible, that I could share the latter one with my own front bench, because obviously, I mean, we can't really affect anything at the moment with the size of the Tory majority, but you know, this is exactly the sort of conversation that will be really important in helping us formulate our policy leading up to the next election. And who knows, there may be issues here where we can push the government on various areas and get some buy-in, given I think, you know, the growing concern around a combination of fuel poverty and climate change, and that the fact that this just pushes so many buttons, this whole area. So if you could do that, I'd be incredibly useful, and something positive I think that would have come out of this afternoon's session. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, no problem at all. Happy to do that for you, Ben. Does anybody else have any questions that they'd like to raise? Or maybe, I know we've got some colleague advisors from Citizens Advice listening. I wonder if Will or Lynn, if you've got anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, this is Will. I'm, for people who don't know me, I'm one of my many roles at Citizens Advice is as an energy advisor. I completely agree with all the issues that you raised in terms of the cold calling, the sort of the technological barriers that many people face, and the complex structure of warm home discounts and the behaviour of suppliers generally. And I think, as I mentioned briefly in one of the comments, one thing that's sort of current in my mind at the moment is the unnecessary complexity of the Green Home grant scheme. It seems to require a lot of unnecessary work that people might need to have done in order to get the thing done that they wanted to have done. I had one client who wanted to have some fairly simple repairs or replacements done to windows and doors, and the only other primary measure that was identified that she might be able to get was basically floor insulation. And when I explained to her exactly what that would involve, she said, well, I'm 92 years old. I don't think I really want people coming in and basically pulling up the whole of the the ground floor of my property. Whereas if it could just been a scheme that could have just replaced her slightly ill-fitting front door, it could have made a tremendous difference to her energy efficiency. It just seems that's leaving aside all the problems with trying to get contractors to actually to do the work, and having contractors being bussed in from South Wales to come to somewhere like Exeter or South Devon seems bizarre to me. But yeah, that's sort of my current bugbear. I think that's just something that's come up in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I agree with you totally, Will. I had a discussion with Regen a couple of weeks ago, and we were saying the same, that, you know, to have a list of measures, it would be better if they just said, well, here's the list of measures, you know, have a voucher for whichever these is suitable for your home, not forcing people to do, you know, a certain list first and then a certain list second. You know, as I said earlier, everybody's home is different and everybody's needs are different. And actually, if you've got a massive draft blowing through your front door, that's what needs to be fixed first. And it does seem a bit crazy that, you know, whilst it's great that there's this money available, I'm not sure it's being offered in the right way. Megan, you've got your hand up.
Oh yeah, yes I have. Thank you. Yeah, I'm a district councillor, East Devon district councillor, and portfolio holder for homes and communities. And I wanted to just ask a very basic question, really, and I think I probably know the answer. But I just wonder what criteria you use for changing energy supplier. So we've talked, you know, some of your colleagues have talked about the customer service and the lack of care and all of that. And I just wonder, you know, whether that is taken into account. I know it's mainly to do with the price, presumably, but is customer service also taken into account? Because I think that's really important. I know when I choose my energy supplier, That's one of the, apart from price, that is really important to me. You know, somebody that you can actually ring up, especially people who are not computer literate, somebody you can ring up and talk to and get a sympathetic and understanding voice at the other end. So that was mine. But I'd also like to follow up this meeting with a further meeting with you as a district council. I'd like, because we're doing a poverty strategy at the moment, and that it all links in with that. And I'd really like to talk to you a bit more about that in future, if that's possible. Thank you.
Yes, of course, Megan, that would be really great. Thank you, to have a further discussion with you. Yeah, in answer to your question, each person that we help, we do treat them as an individual. So the advice we give is based on their needs and their circumstances. And yes, of course, we do take into account customer service. Because we're doing this every day, we know who the good guys are and who the bad ones are. And, you know, we're always sharing advice, not just amongst ourselves, but also with our colleagues like Will, who just spoke from Citizens Advice, and many other colleagues around the sector. So we know who are the companies to avoid. We know instantly if there's something not quite right going on. So we'll take that all into account. We also take into account the type of payment structure that the client needs and the accessibility that they need. As Matthew spoke earlier, you know, not all of them offer paper bills. Some of them are only online now. So obviously, if we've got an elderly person that needs paper bills, then we'll have a smaller section of suppliers that we can suggest and advise on. So yeah, we do a very holistic service with the individuals, and we tailor it right down to specific needs.
Sorry, thank you, I was on mute.
Thanks, Megan. Does anybody else have any questions or points they'd like to raise, or feedback?
I'll raise a point, seeing as I'm here.
Hi, Lynn, nice to see you.
Yeah, I just mentioned in the comments I gave up doing energy advice about 2 years ago because of some of the issues you raised. But one of the things that really, really concerns me, it's quite complex to explain, and it seems to have really gone under the radar. But many landlords, I've seen private landlords do this too, but this is happening a lot in housing associations. They've installed these air source heat pumps that are there together with a hot water tank. And it means that properties that are designed to be on an economy 7 tariff with the hot water tank and the storage heaters have been removed. The air source heat pump has been put in. There appears to be an economic incentive for the housing association. They're actually getting, kickback is the wrong word, but they're getting funding for having installed those heat pumps, often installing brand new water tanks at the same time. And it means that even if the client were to come off the economy 7 tariff for the sake of the new type of heating, they've still got the water tank there. And these people, I'm seeing, I don't know about Exeter, but across South Devon where I work, I've seen so many housing associations do this, and they're not taking responsibility. And I've never raised it in any political forum, so I don't know if what I said makes sense to Ben, but I'm really, really concerned. And I've seen this in private properties as well, that along with, you know, regulating the energy suppliers and how all the money is distributed, people actually installing energy systems, making decision on what type of energy system is installed, are making really, really bad decisions. And I really think something needs, I mean, I'm half Swedish. I can't imagine this ever happening in Sweden. They just wouldn't be that inefficient, you know. So that was my little piece.
Thank you. Yeah,
have you come across that?
Not in Exeter. Mid Devon Council a couple of years ago installed a lot of air source heat pumps, and they were installed in houses that didn't have enough insulation. So people went from spending £100 a month on storage heaters to £200 a month with an air source heat pump. They were told that it would be cheaper, and obviously it wasn't, because it only becomes cheap if you're well insulated. So yeah, I think I'm right in saying that Mid Devon have stopped installing air source heat pumps at the moment, but certainly there has been issues. I agree with you.
Yeah, the housing associations where I saw it, they never took responsibility. They refused to acknowledge that there was an issue. And it's at least 3 housing associations I've seen do this.
Yeah. Okay. Can I jump in on that one a little bit? I'd like to make some contact with you with that one on LinkedIn, because I've come across a few in Teambridge. We might be talking about the same people. I've spoken to Dakin, which is one of the major air source heat pumps suppliers, and one of the engineers. There's quite a few technical things going on in there, and they were adamant that the new MCS standard should make sure these sorts of things don't happen. So whether these were fitted in before, but the air source heat pump manufacturers obviously realizing they need to get this right, because it's being pushed as one of the new alternative sources. So I think that the talk around the tank is a purging requirement. So we could be getting into quite a technical area, but you're right. I mean, they should be easy for, this is back to what I was raising, it should be easy for a householder to manage. They shouldn't be technical barriers. They should just have a heating system that works and is more efficient than what they had before.
But the air source heat pump in itself isn't the problem. The problem is that they've still got the water tank and the Economy 7 tariff. And if you come off the Economy 7 tariff, you've still got the water tank. This is the problem. It's a combination.
Okay.
And I know the housing associations have tended to do it in bulk, that they've, and this is going back as far as 2010. And they've installed new air source heat pumps at the same time as they installed new water tanks. So this is what I'm talking about. The people making the decision about what heating system to put in didn't have a clue what they were doing.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And it's that combination of the water designed for Economy 7, the heat pump not designed for Economy 7, and they're running together. So whatever the customer does, they're paying over the odds because they're not compatible systems.
Yeah, okay.
Lynn, you said in your earlier, you hadn't raised this politically. I do think if you're in a position to, that you should communicate your concern to your local MP.
That's you, dude. Yeah, I can mention it to Anne-Marie Morris as well if I get a chance, but yeah.
This sounds really dodgy.
I've got a few local MPs where I work, but yeah. Yeah, it would be good if someone ever had the time to look into it.
Thanks.
I also, sorry, Tara.
No, it's okay, you continue.
Okay. My other issue with the Green Home grants is that there's, and I know the push is for the country to be more green, but that's not necessarily in the best interest of the people that need heating, etc. It's much cheaper to run a gas boiler at the end of the day. It's about a third of the price, quarter of the price of electricity. And there's more of a push now for more electric. Well, those low-income households are not going to be able to afford their electric bills. That's of major concern. And also, while I'm on it, where you can get a Green Home grant for single glazing. Now, there are so many people that have got double glazing that is really old. It's blown, it also leaks and is drafty, but there's no funding in place for that. And majority of people that have single glazing or did have single glazing have upgraded if they can. So I think now we really need to look at the older style double glazing as part of the scheme.
Yeah, definitely. I think we'll see lots more happening in the next phases of Green Home grants. And Marianne's put in the chat as well. Yeah, and the incentives for solar panels has gone. I mean, all renewable energy. There's no incentives for anything interesting really. It's just a massive push on insulation at the moment, which, when you speak to the retrofit advisors, they say that is the right thing we should be doing. We should be doing the fabric first. But as you say, Charlene, sometimes that's not what's needed with some people. What's needed with some people is a cheaper, better heating system. So we'll have to wait and see on that one, I think. So I'm conscious that we've just gone over 3 o'clock, and I'm sure people need to get back to work, etc. So I think we'll need to wrap up now. So I'd like to just say thank you to everybody that's taken part. I know Ben's just had to shoot off, but thank you to Ben for joining us, and I'm really pleased that we've got his support around some of these issues. I'd like to thank you all for joining us, taking the time to listen. And obviously you've got our contact details. So if we can help you or anybody that you work with in any way, please do get in contact. We're here to help. Our services are always free. So thanks again for joining us for Food Poverty Awareness Day, and have the rest of a good day. Thanks everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you
very much. Bye.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Tara.
Nice to see you all.
Thank you. Bye.